take it. Got it! Boston wins!
Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast.
NBA, some college, a little bit of everything.
You know, what can I say? But it wasn't going to happen here with him. I was okay with it.
It's time for the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman. Where in the world is Jeff Goodman now? Tanguay along for the ride pod right here on CLNS Media. Brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prize Picks. Okay. Before we get to this, Bob, I have to ask Jeff Goodman, who's basically is a vagabond. How does it feel to be traveling the globe? They're empty nesters and they're just traveling everywhere. How does it feel to not have a base, to not have a mortgage? How does that feel?
Well, it sounded great in theory, guys, when we decided to do this and sell our house and not really have a plan, but for at least 6 weeks, just go. And we started in Aruba, went to New York, saw The Great Gatsby. Good show, good show. Then we went to Bloomington. My daughter had her wisdom teeth out, so we were there for like a week when nobody was really on campus. Then went to the Cape, my parents. Played a couple games. I'm now up here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I'll go back to the Cape, then Austin, Texas. Then we come back, get in 2 cars, drive to Nashville, meet my daughter for a couple nights because she turns 21, then drive to Charleston where we'll be in for 4 months and maybe buy there. It sounded great. It sounded like this like awesome thing, right? Like all these places. And man, living out of one suitcase. I'm about a month in right now. Like if you told me tomorrow,
Bob Ryan is shaking his head. No way.
Well, I mean, I'm just marveling. That's all.
Yeah. Because you know what? Like, again, right now, if you told me, hey, you could go to Charleston tomorrow and unpack all and we have all our stuff right now in 2 cars at my parents' in their garage, basically. But filled, locked in, filled. We got 1 suitcase apiece that we're living out of. If you told me tomorrow I could go to Charleston, unpack at our Airbnb that we're going to be at 4 months, I would say, you know what? Where do I sign? I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm worn down. I just want to get to Charleston.
All right. Well, anyways, he's working out of my old hometown, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one of the great,
love it,
phenomenal town. Anyway, so guys, let's Anthony Edwards is an interesting guy.
Yes.
What do you think? And he had some comments about Jordan. First of all, you've known him for how long, Jeff?
Only a few years. So I sat down with him for a while early on in his Georgia years, 1 year at Georgia in college, where they were atrocious. I mean, they were a train wreck. They won, I think, 5 SEC games that year under Tom Crean.
Yeah.
He got fired after that. But, you know, like, I never questioned Anthony Edwards' talent. I don't think anybody ever did. I just thought, like, I'm not sure. He was the same draft as LaMelo Ball. And I remember saying, like, I'm not sure I'd take either one of these and feel good about it. I just probably said it to you, Bob, when we were doing our pod back then. I was like, I don't know if I trust either one of them. Well, I'm right about LaMelo. And I had more information on LaMelo because I spent way too much time with that family. I didn't know Ant-Man like I knew LaMelo, and I was wrong. I didn't know if he had kind of the right support system around him as much as anything coming to the league. And then he goes to Minnesota, where you're like, okay, I question his support system, and now you're going to put him in Minnesota? Like, now I'm really worried. But, man, like, talent on the court, working on the court, loving playing ball on the court, that's all non-negotiable. He's that talented, and he's that much of a killer. Now, his off-the-court comments are bewildering, to say the least.
Bewildering. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, so he said so. Bob, I mean, do you have a comment on him as a player? Then we'll get into the
simply no. He's turned out to be the offensive machine that being the number 1 pick in the draft warrants. And as Jeff said, people knew he had skill, but he's harnessed it properly, I think. You know, and he's very cocky, but that's part of a package of a lot of people, and that's okay. And so on the court, you know, he's a dynamic player. He's one of the most dynamic players in the league today. There's no question, and he's turning out to be, everything a number 1 pick, could be, except winning a championship, and no one was expecting that right away in Minnesota. Minnesota is now a viable team. All right, Minnesota had certainly good stretches last year, and they're respectable to say the very least. And he's a center part of it. He was an Olympian, and by the way, he made contributions that they needed at various times during those Olympics. His offensive spark in at least 2 games, as I recall. Anyway, so yeah, the player is fine. The as I said, he's not much of a basketball historian. We'll just put it that way.
Okay, and on that note, and Bob Ryan, I remember Bob Ryan was one of the first to really. I mean, Jeff, you knew him because you cover the college, but Bob, halfway through the season, was the first to say this guy has Jordan-like qualities. So that brings us to his comments where he says only Jordan had skills. Bob, I will let you take it from there.
Well, I'd love to hear how he defines skill. What does that mean? Is it vertical leap? What is it? I don't know what it's, ball handling. Yeah. I mean, please define it. I seem to recall some pretty good ball players in the old days. And of course we had one thing that the game had that is phasing out, and maybe it'll be a cycle only, although we can always talk about that, which is the big man. The emphasis, the distortion of the game via the 3, and the concurrent diminishing of the role of the old-fashioned, as Al McGuire would say, aircraft carrier's center, and that it's not a prized asset anymore, so fine. But I'm thinking about so we're suggesting that Magic and Larry, and Larry weren't skillful. We're suggesting I'd like to see Bernard King. Let this kid guard Bernard King, see how he does. I like
Dominique Wilkins.
The original human.
Grant Hill. How about a healthy Grant Hill? He was skilled.
Skilled. My God, he's the definition of it. So,
come on.
Where does he get this idea? I don't even. That's all really. That's.
And the worst thing is, here's the quote, guys. Can I read you the quote? He said,
"Yeah, please."
I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak up. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, which it was, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God, but now everybody has skill. And I go back to his first comment. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak.
Wow.
Then don't speak. Shut the hell up about it.
Well, yeah, but okay, let's analyze this a little bit, because I think one of the areas that has led to this misconception, Jeff, I'll start with you on this, is the 3-point shot. I think the 3-point shot has made this such a different game, and with the invasion of the European players, where we talked about it. I mean, how many 3-pointers a game did Larry take? I don't know, 3, 4, 5.
5 would be a big night.
Yeah, 5 would be as Bob pointed out. But so now with the 3-point shot and the scoring, I think people have totally lost perception of how good the players were, because they just didn't take as many threes.
And didn't develop and didn't work on it as a necessary component.
Correct.
In the early stages of the 3, still we had the idea that it was a bad shot. It was a bad shot. Right. And one of the first people that exploited it in a very strategic way was Larry, and Larry picked his spots with it. But if you told him today, hey, it's quite okay to take 10 and 11 threes, he would have, okay, if he may or may not have liked it, but he's very good at it, and he would have known it was good for the team.
Yeah,
but anyway, you make a very good point. That if you could define it, now look, the greatest shooter of all time is in our midst. He's still playing. It's called Steph Curry. Okay, there was nobody as good as Steph Curry from the distance that he shoots from as frequent, and because no one would possibly shoot from that distance, there was no point to it prior to 3. There was no point to it. There's no need to do that. The concept of the game has radically flipped from inside out to outer, and Caitlin Clark. So I used to say Steph Curry, but now he shoots layups compared to her. So with distance, anyway, that was a bad joke. But anyway,
we got it.
Anyway, the game's concept is completely flipped in that regard, and it's not. And we know that the Darwin-morphication of basketball, and the most odious phrase since I've been following basketball my whole life, the worst shot in basketball is the long two. That sticks in my gut. I can't stand to hear that. So anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, Jeff,
you
just
guys know.
I just want to make this
Also,
point,
the rules, Gary.
What's
Gary,
that?
also the rules and how they've changed have enabled now where, teams are averaging 115 points a game.
Right.
Where come on. I mean, let's face it, you look at it, they were averaging under 100 points, and they had to do something to change that because it wasn't visually eye-pleasing. So they did. I mean, you can't play the same way. Now, again, that's not to say Ant Edwards couldn't have played back in the 80s. He could have.
Sure, we're not disparaging him.
Right.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Oh, no. He would have. Oh, no. He would have been. No. But the point, the flip side is what we always have to, what we're more concerned about, the evaluation of how the old guys would have done in today's game kind of thing, as if there was not such a thing as athleticism. Hell, we had athleticism in the 50s, let alone the 70s or 80s. So,
and I have a comment about that. I mean, before we get off the topic, I have something I want to say about that. But I think, Jeff, you just nailed it when you're talking about the points, where I think people like Ant Edwards, or for that matter, others, they have a macro vision of the game instead of a micro vision of the game where they just look at the scores. So how many times during the week do we look, Jeff, and it's like 130 to 125? I mean, I love it. I love today's game. I just love offense, and I know that's, maybe I'm not a true Puritan or whatever. I love it all. I mean, I loved it in the 80s. I love it now. But I think when people look at the scores, that's what they think.
Yeah, you see the guys are averaging 20 right now that never would have been averaging 20. 20 is like an easier number to get. Obviously, when you're averaging 115 points as a team, it's very different. So it's not apples to apples anymore. The numbers aren't quite the same. And again, I mean, you can go down the list. Like, listen, Steph Curry is the best shooter that ever lived. Well, like Reggie Miller was pretty damn good. I think he was skilled. Chris Mullin was pretty skilled, was he not? I mean,
Chris Mullin was. I know. I wanted to cite Chris Mullin as an example of that his skill making. He was the second best player on the Olympic team, by the way, and during the games in the Dream Team in '92 after Barkley. You guys say Barkley didn't have skills, by the way.
Right.
I
wonder what Chuck is going to say when he hears that.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to know. And the other thing is, you got a guy like Kareem. I don't think that Anthony Edwards can remotely comprehend what a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was like, and because there is nothing like him today.
I'm glad you brought up Kareem, because I think because of his mannerisms, his personality, and because of the gentleman that he is, I think he's underrated by today's fan. Now, if you saw him play, Bob, obviously, I mean, we grew up watching Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You can make him, you want to say he's the greatest that ever lived? Sure. Jordan Russell, I don't know, whatever, pick one. But because he's not like Shaquille, who, is not doing every commercial. He's not on Instagram. He's not doing it. But people really have lost track, Bob, of how great he was. You can make the argument he's the greatest center that ever lived.
Oh, there's the great holy trinity of centers, and you're free to pick which one you want with Russell and Wilt. I mean, I still insist that any list of top 10 without question and top 5 highly arguably players who ever played, you have to have those 3 centers. Period. It starts with them, and then we go from there. So, in that regard, and because center now, the position requirements and job description are so different than a forward and a guard, that they have to be in their own category.
Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, you just go against the numbers. You against the numbers, that's it. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. With as little as 4 correct picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000. That's right, $10 into $1,000. It's that easy. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football season in September. 4 weeks of free wins, 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss the deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September is gone, when September ends. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long with Prize Picks. Patrick Mahomes, what do you think of this one? Patrick Mahomes for more than 4,300 passing yards. And Aaron Rodgers, listen, he has to really step it up. Aaron Rodgers for more than 3,750 passing yards. Yeah, I think both of those can happen. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. But Jeff, and I'll start with you on this topic. I do believe, because I know what Mr. Ryan's going to say, I do believe that if you took any of the great players from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, what he said, and move them into other areas, they would adjust and they would still be great players. In other words, if you took if you took Walt Frazier from the 70s and put him in today's game, he would still be great because he would make the adjustments that he needed to make to be a great player. That's what I feel.
Everybody goes back to like Cousy or like John Stockton. Like that's the problem is these guys go back to them and yeah, they were kind of outliers in a sense, right? Like John Stockton didn't look the part, but he was so cerebral. Yes, he played with Karl Malone. That helped.
Sure.
Their two-man game. But like, yeah, could John Stockton guard today? Well, he wasn't great defensively then, but I'll tell you what, like he made every right decision, didn't he? Like he could have played. Maybe he wouldn't have put up quite the same numbers, but he would have been effective. It just he might have hit the weight. He might have had to hit the weight room a little bit more now. That might have been the difference. They didn't do that then. He wasn't blessed with that body, but man, he had this.
Let me tell you, a guy. I don't want to talk about seeing the forest for the trees. I forget somebody rather obvious that would have been a star at the same level in any era. John Havlicek. John Havlicek would have fit into any defensive scheme that has ever been concocted. And there was a 1962 when he was a rookie or 2024, 25, first of all. And you talk about athlete, there was an extraordinary athlete. It would have been fit beautifully. And by the way, he had 3-point range even in his day, but it was seldom utilized.
Oh, he hated the shot. I mean, we talked about it. He even told me, like I've talked about this before, meeting my hero, John Havlicek, and the topic was the 3-point shot. And he said, Gary, I despise it. Told me in the parking lot of the Garden. We're in the parking lot in front of the new Garden, which is now the big monstrosity, basically a mall. John Havlicek standing there, sitting next to me on a wintry night. And he says to me, I hate the 3-point shot. Period.
Bob loves it. Bob loves it. It's like music to his ears right now.
It's true. He hated it. He said it's ruining the game. And I get it. I totally get it. And he obviously, Bob, he would have been a great 3-point shooter.
Oh, yeah, well, he had a range every now and then.
Of course.
I'll just tell you 3 more names that I think would they acquit themselves admirably in today's game, and that would be Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor.
Yeah, I was going to say Baylor.
These young folks have no concept about Baylor's role in the evolution of the game. Namely, the basically invented modern individual basketball moves. That
Pete Maravich, Earl Monroe. Come on.
Maravich with 68 points at Massacre Garden without the 3, and he had 3-point range. And when that would have been, anyway. Well,
but it's good to talk about. I will say this, and I maybe I'm going old bastard, and you guys can call me old bastard Tanguay. I will say this, Jeff. Today's player is not as tough as yesterday's player because they bitch too much.
Yeah, 100%. On the whole, again,
and they're just conditioned. They're conditioned to
like we've seen it. Yeah, but I do think like Ant Edwards is kind of an old school guy, and to hear him killing old school basketball is just stupid, and it's not even disrespectful. It's just honestly not being educated in it. It's not being educated as much.
Let's not forget, by the way, we can't. We have a newly minted coach of a team on the West Coast who's on record as saying that those guys played against plumbers and firemen, and so you can't walk away from that one. I want the full scale apology. So on that one too.
We'll hear it again. Hey, in 25 years, they'll be saying it about this group. That they didn't guard at all, that they weren't tough, that whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you want to make a memory, you got to go to Game Time. All right. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you all the incredible deals and the great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of seats. You've got the super deal. Don't forget about the super deal. And curated deals, they make it easier to find the best price on great seats. And I think this is so cool, is when you click on the ticket, right? You go to the app. If you want to go to a game in Boston, you want to go to a game in New York or Philadelphia, whatever, you go to the city and you click on the game you want to go to, and then they just show you a great, easy to read layout of the stadium. And then you click on the seat you want, and then you get a view of the seat right from there. Boom. You know what you're buying. So you get seat views before you buy, and they have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss. It's terrific. So toggling here with the Game Time app. Now this feature shows the total upfront, no surprise fees at checkout, so you know what you're dealing with. You don't click on the button after and you go, wait a minute, what's that extra $20 for? Also, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference for the lowest price guarantee. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you up to 100% of the difference. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. How do we feel about this draft class? These rookies coming in, Jeff.
I mean, it's underwhelming. It's underwhelming. We talked about this draft and the number one pick. Risa Shea probably would have gone in a normal year. 8, 10, 12, something like that. In a good year, I should say. My big question for Bob, and then I'll answer. I'm curious to hear your answer too, Gary. Like, who is the rookie that you can't wait? Is there one? Is there one you're really looking? Because last year it was Victor, and Chet Holmgren coming off the injury.
Sure.
Those two were like the two, and it was all really about Victor. Chet had a great year. This year, is there somebody that you are really, really interested and looking forward to seeing?
No.
Well, given the fact that I truly never heard of half of the first round due to the Europeanization of it, the French nature of it. There's a guy that has been now Jimmy Shapiro, I'd say, is the favorite for Rookie of the Year. And I've got my eye on him only because I wrote about his father when he was in college, and that's Reed Shepherd. I'm curious. I never projected that he would be that esteemed. He was the third pick in the draft, I believe, and that he would be a favorite for Rookie of the Year. That's going to be a hard one to live up to, I think. But but I do remember his father, Jeff, and I remember writing a column about Jeff in that 78, 80, 80. Well, for Kentucky back in the day,
right?
I'm off by a
Jeff, I just don't expect anything from the. I don't expect anything from the young players anymore.
I mean, this year's class especially, I'm interested to see Reed Shepherd because this is a kid who came in at Kentucky as like the afterthought. Like people are talking about him as like a 4-year player and a program guy who might not play last year. And instead he came off the bench and was their best player. And as Bob said, got drafted high, is really going to help Houston a lot because he's so mature. He'll add to that team and really help him, a connector.
Well,
he's not going to blow you away. He's not going to blow you away, though.
Well, and I don't really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a guy, Jeff. Let's face it. The LeBron James at 19 is. I mean, that's a once in a lifetime player. These guys coming out at 19 now. Like Victor came out, and we kept an eye on him, but he wasn't really a factor. I mean, he didn't come on. It's just, I think the days of seeing a rookie come in and take control of the league are over.
I'm not looking for that, but here's what I'm looking for. Here's the biggest thing I'm looking for this year, because I think it's going to determine some things in the future. Donovan Clingan and Zach Edey, both drafted in the top 10, both traditional bigs. And we've talked about the fact that traditional bigs can't be drafted that high anymore because of the way the league's gone. And Clingan goes to Portland, and Zach Edey goes 9th to Memphis. And I want to see how both of them do, because I think it will determine whether more bigs get drafted high or not. And I'm really interested to see Edey, because with that team, with Ja Morant back, who, Ja only played, I think it was 9 games last year. Remember, they were out. Desmond Bane missed 40 games. Marcus Smart missed games. Now you got a big, and how are they going to utilize it? How are they going to and again, what's Ja going to look like this year? Is Ja going to be the Ja that we were talking about a few years ago? Is like Ja, Luka, Tatum. Like those were like the trio that we were talking about as the face of the league. So I can't wait to see how they utilize Edey. Is he a starting center? Is he just a guy who plays 12, 15 minutes coming off the bench? I think that's hard to imagine with using a 9th pick overall on him. Yeah,
it is. And I'm with you on that one very definitely, because, I've been a bad advocate of the big man. And this kid, one thing, I expect him to rebound. I don't think any problem is going to be a rebounder. Now, Clingan does have a little range, right? Clingan can face up on a kid.
You don't know.
It's not a
yes. Maybe,
you're skeptical.
It's not
like a horrible sight. You don't go, oh my God, no, right? If he's deciding to shoot, no, he's not like that. He can. Edey is old fashioned all the way, low post moves, right? But all right, so I don't know. I'm just saying,
can't score yet. He can't really score yet. You can't throw Donovan Clingan the ball in the post. Right. You can lob it to him, but he's not there yet. Edey is much more of a finished product on the offensive end.
Yes.
Than Clingan is a beast defensively, but oh, by the way, Edey ate him up in the championship game, even though UConn won that game going away at the second half.
Now, I don't know anything about Clingan personally, but I have surmised that Edey wants to show the world that there is room for a 7'4" guy in this game, and he's going to be the guy to show the world that there's still value in what he does. He
Clingan is so sweet as a kid, almost, Bristol, Connecticut. It came out and it came to him quick. Nobody thought he'd be, 2 and done. Edey, Edey's got a little more shit to him. Edey's got a little more shit to him, a little more of a chip in his shoulder than Clingan.
Yeah, which I think is going to serve him well. I think because historically, it goes back to, a lot of big men are too easygoing for their own good.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of big men
love the game,
and they, whether they've been as big kids, they've been cautioned not to hurt the kid and all kinds of stuff, and mocked it. But a lot of big men have been too passive for their own good. But I don't think Edey's going to have that problem. So,
well, he's got something to prove. The thing with Edey is, I remember during the playoffs, they said maybe second round, probably not going to get drafted, right?
When he was a junior, the first time I heard this possibility that they wouldn't even draft him at that draft, where and out of 60 people, he wouldn't get picked. That got my attention, so I kept my eye on him all year this year. I said, so I felt a sort of a personal glow when he went number 9.
Well, chip, nothing like a chip on your shoulder, but you guys know how I feel. I just feel all of these fads, if you will, or the way the game goes. It all depends on who's available as a player. If these 2 centers come out and do a great job, then all of a sudden the big man's back.
Well, it means they have to be developed, though. They have to be developed in high school and college. And
also, Bob, I also think the reason the big man hasn't been important is because 7-footers handle the ball, right? Durant, the guys from Europe. Well, the guys from Europe are like 6'11" point guards.
Jokic is bringing the ball up half the time. It seems he's got the ball a lot. That's for sure. You're right. He's exhibit A. Oh. And of course, Giannis, he's never been he's not a center at all. He never was. But he's that big. in the old days, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 would have been a center. He's not a center. And no, you're right. The Europeans, of course, that's the way they're bred for multiple skills, no questions. But
right. So, have you guys seen, Jeff, I'll start with you. Have you seen the Cooper Flag commercial for New Balance?
I have. I like it. I was surprised that he signed with New Balance just because Nike generally can outbid anybody.
Right.
And I think ultimately they will. At some point, I could see them getting Cooper Flag. But I love the fact that, obviously there was a New Balance factory close from where he grew up in Maine. There's some, I don't know, loyalty is the right word. I assume
that was the implication.
Offer.
Yeah,
probably. I mean, we don't know what the numbers were, but, Nike can outbid for whoever they want, whenever they want, for the most part. Although the Nike stock is falling a little bit, or did fall a little bit, so maybe not quite as much with Phil Knight getting worried. But yeah, cool, very cool. I can't wait to see what Cooper does this year.
Oh boy.
To be honest, I can't wait to see if he's the next Duke villain. Like, is he JJ Redick? Is he Christian Laettner? Like, Kyle Filipowski was never that at Duke. Grayson Allen was probably the most recent Duke villain.
He made it very easy.
He did. Tricking people, no doubt. Like Cooper doesn't say much. Like he's not a media guy at all.
He's from Maine. How can you not love the guy? He's from Maine, right, Bob? Come on.
I think people are going to I do think, again, Duke fans are going to love him, but he's just kind of got that the way he plays. He plays with some shit to him. So I think he's going to be one of those. And we're going to hear about him preseason ad nauseum. And that's part of it, right? We never heard Kyle Filipowski. Nobody talked about him at all. This kid's going to be talked about before he plays his first game over and over and over. People are going to want him to fail.
No, right away. And even the name, sticks in your head right away. Your name causes attention. And Scott, I have not seen him, so I can't wait to see what it's like. So.
Well, I love the ad because that driveway looked just like pretty much every driveway where I grew up. I mean, that's what it was. There you had the basket, except in my driveway. My dad, my dad chopped. I think my dad chopped down a tree. Debarked it, and that was the pole, Bob. That was the pole for the basket. Oh. I got the basket. We got the basket at Puya Hardware. The hardware store had the basketball and the backboard. Got that at Puya Hardware store, which go figure. And then we knew somebody that worked for the power company, and they had these augers that they drilled holes to put in the poles. So we got him to come over to my driveway, and he drilled a hole in the driveway. We put in the tree that my dad chopped down, and we put up the hoop. That's a Maine basketball hoop right there.
I like that.
That is a Maine basketball hoop right there. I'll tell you what, Massachusetts folks. So, well, I can't wait to see Cooper. I think it's going to be great. Well, gents, Jeff, we'll talk to you next week from, Madagascar or someplace. Or
maybe Austin, Texas. I can't remember.
Dude, have you been to Austin?
Yes, love it.
Yeah, I hear you. Once you go, you don't want to leave.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun spot.
All right. Jeff Goodman, Bob Ryan, Tanguay along for the ride, brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prize Picks. Gents, see you next time.